This is gonna be fun. We're all yappers.
This might be a little.
Nah.
No, we stand. I'll put that
Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone.
Welcome back.
Episode 2.
Yes. And today we have a special guest with us.
Our first guest, Elena Carter.
I'm Elena. Cool. Well, I guess we can just get into it. And before we get into it, this is part of our Hackworth Fellowship at the Markkula Center for Applied Ethics. And so again, if you are new here, this is our podcast on sense of belonging, where we just talk to Santa Clara students, professors, and just people out in the community to find out what is like their definition of sense of belonging, where have they found it at Santa Clara if they're like a student or a professor, and just to,
Or if they haven't.
Yeah, especially that, if they haven't found sense of belonging, and kind of just shed light on that and, see ethics in our everyday world.
Give voices to people who deserve to be heard about their experiences and see if we can find any kind of parallels in certain things. And yeah.
So with that, Elena, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, so I am a senior at Santa Clara. I transferred here 2 years ago now, or almost. I'm finishing up in the spring, and I started in fall of 2022. So I've had 2 years here and learned a lot. But yeah, I'm excited to also be finishing up.
Wait, out of curiosity, what are you like majoring in?
I'm majoring in communications. I don't have a minor. But yeah, I've been really enjoying the major.
Wow.
So to preface, I met Elena last quarter. We took a art ELSJ together. It was called Photography in the Community, where we basically got to teach middle school students how to do photography. And that was honestly besides the point, because I met Elena and our energies clicked very quickly, and I got to learn about her experience, and which is why I really wanted to bring her on the podcast, because I don't want to say it for you, but Elena is a transfer student and she also commutes to school, which are I think two aspects of like people's identity that Heidi and I definitely like thought about when we were thinking about creating this podcast. Like that's definitely people who have like are either commuters or transfers definitely seem to have a more difficult time like feeling like a sense of belonging when they come to Santa Clara. And I think the combination of the two probably has been even more difficult.
Right. And on top of that, I think my college experience has been pretty unconventional, in the sense that this is my third school also, which it's been a long journey. I think, being a little bit older and like having taken some time off school, going to multiple different schools, being a transfer student here, and then also a commuter, it just kind of all comes together to make this pretty challenging situation to navigate, but it's also been pretty cool and rewarding in some ways.
Someone who like has like this social like vivacious energy like you do.
Right. I think sometimes it definitely has felt like I think I could be very successful in social situations here if I was maybe presented with more opportunities. But I don't know that there's not opportunities either. I think, there's just kind of a combination of things that have led me to maybe like not get the most out of that aspect of school. Like I definitely have a lot to be grateful for this school, but I think the social aspect has definitely been challenging at times. So
I want to dive into that social aspect a little bit, but before I want to back it up, you said you had like an unconventional kind of like college journey. Can you talk a little bit like about that? And you said you're
give us it all.
How you find Santa Clara, all that good stuff, like your whole path.
So I am from San Jose, California, so I'm really local. I went to high school in the area, and I graduated in 2018 from high school. And right out of high school, I went to Montana State University in Bozeman, Montana. And I mean, I still have friends from, my time there. And I think I mean, it's beautiful out there. It was a cool experience, but ultimately it was not the place for me. I also ended up having a medical emergency while I was there. I had to get my appendix removed like ASAP. Like it was like could not wait. And so that was a challenging time. So I made the decision. So I ended up getting my appendix removed the second day back for second semester. So there were classes at like 6 a.m. or something. So I hadn't even gone to half of my classes for second semester. And they told me I'd need to be in bed rest for like a couple weeks and not be I mean, you had to trudge out in the snow to get to class. So like it was not the kind of environment for someone who's recovering from something so kind of extreme on your body. And so I ended up making the decision to do a retroactive withdrawal, which basically means like on my transcript, it looks as if I had never enrolled in second semester at Montana State, which I mean, doesn't look great on your transcripts, but at the same time, it's better than dropping out second day. So I was grateful that they were able to let me do that. I came home and I just felt like completely lost. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got through one semester of college and like I failed. I thought I had really like, that was it. I can't go back now. I'm so embarrassed. And then I worked like part-time jobs and just kind of hung out with friends that were here, hung out with my family, recovered, and kind of figured out what my next steps were. I think I probably researched every possible option of careers that did not require a degree because I was so convinced that I could not go back to school. I looked into like different kinds of degrees and like licenses too. Like I looked into real estate, I looked into different sort of certificates that could help me get into certain things. And ultimately I decided that I did feel like strongly about going back to school and kind of finishing what I started. That was a big thing, was like, I'm not gonna let this, define me and like get me down. So after a year and a half of just kind of figuring things out and being kind of at a low in my life, I went to Anza College, which is a community college in Cupertino. And I did that because I wasn't sure where I wanted to transfer to. I knew I wanted to stay local this time. So I was planning on applying to like San Jose State, Santa Clara. I even applied to San Francisco State and CSU Monterey Bay. And I just wanted to like have options. I didn't know what was going to happen because I knew my track record, my transcript didn't look great on paper, but I had a story to kind of back that up. So I knew I'd get in somewhere. But yeah, I went to Anza because they wouldn't let me transfer in with the amount of credits that I had or units. I had to get either 60 semester units or 90 quarter units. Yeah, so because Santa Clara is on the quarter system, I had to get the equivalent of like 90 units, which is the equivalent of 2 years total. So that's why I went to Anza. I basically had half a year's worth of credits from Montana State. So I did a year and a half at Anza to make up those units so that I'd be able to transfer to a 4-year in state. It was something weird with, I don't know, like all the, how it transfers over, and not all of I also was in a different major at Montana State. I was doing psychology. So there was kind of a combination of obstacles. But I went to Anza for a year and a half, got my associate's degree for transfer. And they kind of make you set a goal school when you start there, that they kind of, based on the requirements of that school, they're able to kind of help you figure out what you need in order to be able to have the best odds of transferring there, which was really helpful, except for their program or their, school, like how it's structured, is really designed for transferring to California state schools, so UCs or CSUs. So transferring to a private school, I got in and I was so excited, but it's definitely been challenging. I had to petition for certain classes to count because they weren't called the same thing, even though I learned the same things. And so it's definitely been a journey. But now I'm here. I've been here for 2 years already, which feels crazy. So
when you were at Anza, like, in your mind, were you just like, okay, this is just a stepping stone for
Yeah.
me to like get to college? Like, I'm not gonna like, I'm like,
Absolutely.
and were you staying at home too?
I was at home, and I fully treated it that way. I mean, I think with De Anza, it is such, I mean, there's no on-campus housing, there's no, like, it really is, people drive, they commute to De Anza, they go to class and they go home.
Mhm.
There are clubs and there are sports, but unless you're involved in one of those, you really have no reason to be sticking around.
Yeah.
I didn't know a single person at De Anza at that point because a lot of the people I went to high school with and like that were my grade who had gone to De Anza were already, had already transferred because they were, I had taken, a year and a half off of
Right.
school or 2 full years off of school, but so it was like I was 2.5 years out of high school.
So they were basically leaving.
So they
you
were,
out there.
right. So I didn't know anyone. So I was strictly going there to go to class.
Yeah.
I ended up, I got a 4.0, like graduated summa cum laude because I was just like, I need to focus. I need to like get to the next thing. But it was very much just to get that associate's degree so that I could end up here.
Yeah. Do you feel like there were resources that made you like feel like you belonged like at Montana State and like at De Anza? I know you said it was more of like a commuter culture, like at De Anza, like you go to class,
Right.
go back home. But do you feel like there were things that would like draw you to want to stay on campus, or do you feel like it would like institutionally like place to like make students like find community?
Yeah. So I think start with Montana State, I felt a great sense of community. I went there partially because I knew some people that were going to be going there from my area, like friends that I had from home that were going to be going. So it felt a little less scary. But I mean, I knew friends that were going to lots of different schools. The appeal of Montana was kind of to get away and experience something new. I'd lived in California my whole life.
Yeah.
And it was a vastly different environment. And I think it was exciting in that way.
Mhm.
And I really, really did love the social aspect. I loved the community. I mean, living in the freshman dorms, I think is something that you can't get anywhere else. Like that kind of
Yeah.
experience, everyone's open and everyone's, hey, how's it going? Leaving the doors open. And so that I mean, I don't know how that is here. I'm assuming it's similar.
I didn't have it.
Okay, yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah,
COVID.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
So this was 2018.
Mhm.
So it was before all that. And
Yeah.
it was, I mean, really great experience. And that's how, I mean, most
Joy
people are
comes to my
still,
face hearing about that.
yeah,
Mhm.
it was cool. But I mean, I ended up leaving after
Yeah,
6 months.
Which
so
probably makes it like almost worse to
but I
experience
ended up
first
being
place.
in my freshman roommate's wedding a couple years ago. So like
Oh,
I met
no
some
way.
like
That's
really,
so
really
cool.
cool. Yeah, I was one of her bridesmaids. So
Oh
I mean,
my
I got
God.
a lot of really great things out of that experience, but I mean, I am happy to be home and not there, but I'm grateful for that time. And then as far as De Anza, I think it pretty much is like kind of ingrained in the structure of the school. I mean, I don't want to, that's not to say it's not a good school, but their like tagline is Topsy transfer. And so they really have this emphasis on go and get your degree so that you can transfer. Like, don't stick around. Like, it's their whole pride and joy is that they get students to transfer to all these really great schools. It's a great goal. But I think that while you're there, it does feel kind of like, okay, I'm only doing this for that next thing, to chase that next thing.
Yeah.
You would kind of, I don't know, my mind when I think of that, I'm like, I feel like a part of that, like preparing people to transfer is like preparing them to transfer
Right.
socially as well.
No, it was
not
like
just
get your
academically.
transcripts up to par with what you need to be able to be at that school.
Interesting, yeah.
That's crazy.
I do know people who played sports there and liked it, but again, I think they played sports there so that they could then go on and play sports at another school. Like I think that's kind of common among community colleges in general. I mean, I don't know personally, but I know other people who've gone to West Valley and different schools. And I think for the most part, unless you're going into more of a, like, unless you're going into a career where you kind of only need your associate's degree, or some certificate from one of those schools. And then in that case, that might feel like that is your college experience. But I think for a lot of people who go into it fully knowing they're going to end up transferring to a 4-year, it's kind of just like, okay, how do I get there?
Do you feel like when you were there, you like you wish you had that, or while you were there just like
I don't think
like, want to just be
so.
done with this?
Yeah, I think I didn't have a huge desire to stick around, whereas I think that's very different than my experience at Santa Clara, because I think when I
It's
because
like
I-
home bit, like you're like I
right,
made
well,
it.
and because I didn't have that experience, I mean, I had it at Montana State, but so briefly.
Mhm.
And then I kind of feel like it was almost ripped away from me by my health and, just the
Mhm.
circumstances. And I could have probably stayed, but I knew that having to miss so much school, I wouldn't be able to perform academically that semester to the best of my ability because there were professors I hadn't even met yet. They weren't going to do me any favors. It was also a way bigger school. I mean, it wasn't huge, but like I had a fall semester, I had a like 300 person lecture, like in a big lecture hall. So it wasn't the same environment, like classroom environment, where at Santa Clara, where you are, really in touch with your professors and your classmates, and you can get the help you need if you miss something. Like you can just, talk to them or shoot them an email. Like it was really hard to get the support. So I just knew, not having ever even met them, I figured I was better off kind of starting fresh. And at that point, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to go to school anymore. Like I was so frustrated. I am ultimately very glad I decided to go back though. So I think I've learned a lot in the last 6 or so years. A lot of lessons that I'm glad I've learned, thought I would never have to learn. I think I'm a better person because of it. Like I really do think that there's so many things I'm like more appreciative of, or, I also think growing up, I had this idea of what a college path should look like. And I, even being here, even once I have come to terms with it so recently, the fact that everybody has their own unique path. And even people who do go to high school and go to 4-year right out of high school and then graduate in 4 years and then go on to work. And even those people who have the more traditional, path have their own unique experiences throughout that. So like, I think coming to terms with the fact that I'm not doing it wrong, it's just different than some other people's experiences has been relieving, and kind of taken this like, okay, wait, I'm still doing it. I'm getting my degree. Like I'm gonna graduate. I should be proud of that. I'm not like embarrassed that I'm graduating 2 years after my high school peers. Like
Definitely not.
So but I struggled with that for a really long time.
So I think we kind of talked about this a little bit like last week when we were talking about our experiences. Was you said it, I honestly think more eloquently, like that everyone kind of has their own path.
Right.
And when you kind of accept that, like it allows you just to feel like almost like you belong to some extent, like even if you objectively like don't have the same experience, or you like haven't like had like the resources you wish you had, or like just things didn't go like the way you would have like dreamed of it to go. Like once you come to terms like that, like you kind of have yourself, and you like you can accept like the experience you have, and that it's just gonna be different for everyone. It like almost makes you feel like you belong.
It's like the
extent.
one thing that we have in common is that we're all different.
Yeah,
Like, we can all relate to not relating. Like we're all kind of going through things. Also, like, I mean, I feel like in college there's a lot of pressure to, be a part of some, club or
to belong,
something, or to belong in some
like
way.
Almost.
And you're there with those people, but like you could have something going on at home that nobody knows about.
Yeah.
You could have, I mean, so many things go on in people's day-to-day lives that are not talked about. And that not to say people should have to talk about them if they don't want to, but I think it's important to realize, like, I think for a while I almost felt sorry for myself. I was like, well, they don't, I'm older, I'm a transfer student, I don't get those experiences. And it's like, I can blame other things as much as I want, but like, I also, and not to say I am to blame for my experiences. I think we all have a certain level of self, responsibility for our own circumstances, but there also are things that happen to us that are out of our control. So like, but I think that's important to acknowledge that that's true of everyone. So,
Totally, very true. I'm wondering too, like, what attracted you, because you said you applied to like some other schools, like as well. What attracted you to Santa Clara, and then do you feel like now, because like you're a senior and that's like
Yeah.
so exciting. Like now looking back, are there things like you wish you would have known, or like that feeling of like things you wish you would have did, or like that kind of self like realization you were having, like, hey, you don't have to like join everything.
Right.
Like, you know, what has been like your kind of reflections on that as you look?
Yeah. I think that's still a complicated question in my mind.
Yeah.
I think what drew me to Santa Clara was, so my boyfriend went here and he graduated in 2020. And so I already kind of had an experience with Santa Clara. Like, I think I came here and like hung out with people and partied here more before I even went here than I do now. Because I would go to all his parties and hang out with all his friends, you know, on the weekends and stuff. So I already kind of knew that I liked the atmosphere of Santa Clara, and I had met a lot of really cool people. But of course, by the time I was going here, they were all gone.
Yeah.
So, but I knew that was what Santa Clara could offer me.
Mhm.
And I also, my mom works here. She works at the Miller Center.
Oh, nice.
And she has told me a lot of really great things. And I think she's honestly been a huge help in helping me navigate some of the, you know, loneliness and stuff, because she'll hear about events that are going on that I may not have, you know, gone and researched or looked up, see what's going on campus today or whatever. And she'll get an email from the school or something, or hear something from one of her coworkers about some student event that's going on, and she'll be like, oh, you should go to this, and or forward me emails and stuff. So she's been a huge help in kind of pushing me to get myself involved, because I think, I mean, I am an extrovert, I'd say, for the most part, but I mean, okay, I'm not gonna argue that I'm not an extrovert, but I will argue that I definitely have some level of social anxiety too.
Oh yeah. I
So
feel
like, I
almost
think,
every extrovert does to
Yeah.
some extent.
like, I think I do very well in social situations, but I sometimes have a hard time putting myself in them. So I like when people come up to me, like if someone comes up to me and it's like, hey, what's up? Oh my gosh, like, what's your name? I will like meet that energy with like, I'm Elena, what's, you know, I'll be so happy about it. And I'm not gonna be like, ew, what the heck? Why are you talking to me? Like, I don't like, I love that.
Yeah.
But I have a hard time being that person first, I think. Sometimes, and pushing myself out of my comfort zone, because I think also transferring here and not being in that like freshman class of everyone getting to know each other, you know, in the dorms or whatever. I think I have this a little bit of a sense of like imposter syndrome, like we're not the same, or like you already have your friends, like you don't need me, you don't, you know, like I shouldn't be coming up to you because you've already established yourself at this university and in this community, and you don't know me. I like, I should.
I feel like part of that maybe also is like you were so used to like before you came here, just to like going to school and coming back, and like it was like habitual for you. So like there was no, like you're like, well, I've been doing this, like it's not like I don't need necessarily to like go like take like a leap of faith and put myself out there, because I know I'm gonna be okay like if I don't. Like it's not like I'm like.
And I think coming here, I was like, before I got here, I was like, finally, I'm gonna have the college experience that I've been waiting for. Like, I've gone, what, 4 years as of this point without it. Like, it's my time kind of thing. And I was so looking forward to having like the, you know, traditional college experience that like it seems like everybody has, which obviously I know like not everyone has the same experience, but there is kind of certain things that I feel like are very, you know, typical of like college students to do, and like the, you know, the parties and the, you know, events and the clubs, and, you know, getting involved in things and going to sporting events and like things that I was like, finally, I'm gonna get to do this. And then I think the second I was faced with, oh, it's not just coming at me and I have to go find that and do that for myself, I was like, hold on, whoa, like I'm not ready for this. And I think you're right that I was trained to keep my head down, and you know, I'd look at my phone walking to class and then walk to my car and leave, because that was the culture at the Anza. And so I think I was kind of like, oh wait, this isn't going to be as easy as I thought it was going to be. Like I thought it was just like everyone's, out there everywhere just wanting to say hi to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I glorified it a little bit in my head too, just like being so excited.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely harder than I thought. And I think also being from here, like I do have friends that are still local. So I feel like as soon as it wasn't just super easy to meet people and make friends here, I just resorted back to, well, I have friends already. Like I'm okay. And I'd still love to meet people, but I wasn't as willing to put myself out there and search for it. I was like,
you had something.
because I had a fallback plan.
Yeah.
And like I had people that love me in this area that are, I can go hang out with them right after this if I want
Yeah.
to. Like,
Or even
so
your family. Like,
my family's
so
local,
close,
like, yeah, I have a support system, so I think it was easier to ignore the opportunities.
It's not like you had, it's not like you had no other option.
Right. I think I would have been more inclined to put myself out there and join some sort of club or something if I knew that was the only way I was going to have any sort of social life.
Yeah. That's
But,
like
like,
exactly what happened to me. And like
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it now, just like hearing your experience, like I think part of the reason I was so good at, or like I have like retrospectively been so good about putting myself out there is because I had no other, like my family was in Connecticut. I didn't know anyone here. I was like, I'm either gonna leave here or I'm gonna like just,
Right. You had to make
like,
your experience.
I had to like, it was a decision. And like if I think if I had like other options or like they're just like some sort of backup like that, just it makes it oddly so much more difficult to put yourself out there, which you would think like, oh, like obviously that's a nice thing to have, but and you would never want to take that away from someone, but sometimes in taking that away or like forgetting, like it like gives you the opportunity to like
You're
meet
almost,
people and like
instead of jumping into the deep end, you're kind of pushed.
yeah,
and you're just like, well,
exactly.
I guess I gotta learn how to swim.
Yeah. Exactly. You had to like look at the deep
Right,
end,
and
like,
be like,
see like the dark deep water. And you're like, I'm not here for that. Yeah, that's super interesting to
I
think
think
about.
that culture shock part is like so crazy though, because like I never thought about the sense like when you think of a transfer student, you like compare that's like a first year student. It's like, oh, it's like everyone's first year like on campus, but especially like the kind of like culture they're transferring from, I think is so crazy because especially if you were like trained in a sense that's like, okay, go to class, go home, and then you come here and it's like, okay, I guess I'll just go to class and go home.
Yeah.
And then I feel like it's also like crazy because it's like if you do or if you are involved in something on campus, like like you can have fun, stay, but it's not like necessary or makes or breaks the college experience, which is like crazy to think about. Like if it's like, okay, you just like go your whole time and you don't want to like get involved in it, you very much can. Like no one is like, hey, you're not involved in like anything. Like what the heck? You need to
really
join
is
this.
up to you to like make the experience that you want to have.
Yeah.
But I think it's easy to fall into just a rhythm of doing what everyone around you is doing. And so for someone living on campus, hey, my roommates are saying, hey, I'm gonna go do this. Do you want to come? And it's so easy to just go along, whereas like I don't have that. So I have to insert myself into a situation where I could, gain some experience. And like I think the other thing is like I've met a lot of really great people in classes. I went to like one transfer event like when I first started. I met some cool people. Like there's people I'll say hi to on campus. Like I'm not totally like I don't know a single soul here. But I've had a hard time translating those kind of in-class friendships or people I say hi to and taking it to the next level of like, hey, we're actually friends. Like it's very much, oh, I see you as a familiar face on campus and I'd love to hang out if and it just I feel like I've fallen into this almost like I cannot say I'm an introvert. Like I really can't pull that off. But like I will say I fall into this anxious mode of like, well, maybe they don't want to hang out with me and that's the reason they haven't asked. But it's like I also haven't like indicated that
you want to
like,
hang out or you want
and so I've been trying to like be better about being intentional with like if I like I mean, nobody's gonna hand me this experience. And
Yeah.
so I think, I mean, it's a little late for me to just be starting this journey
Last
too late.
quarter,
Never
too
too
late.
late.
last quarter here, but I'm like, I'm trying to just be like, I'm going to the Giants game tonight. That's like Santa Clara night.
Yeah.
I'm not going with any Santa Clara students, but maybe I'll see some there. I don't
Yeah.
know. But like, I'm just like, I'm trying to like not say no so much and make excuses for why, oh, but I won't know anyone there. Or, oh, you know, it's weird for me to go because I'm older, or and I'm 2 years
I'm gonna
older
hold
than
you
everyone.
to
Like,
it.
but it's like I'm trying to be like, well, you gotta invite me places.
Places you
gotta-
wanna go.
Yeah, that's fair. No, she's been great. She's been great. She's like you're like the probably one or two of the people I've met that's been like, hey, let's like actually hang out. I'm giving you a hard time. No, Kendall's great. Little plug.
Hang with Kendall.
Yeah.
Shout out.
No, but
Layup.
But seriously, like I feel like for so many other like people, I've had to like think about like, oh my god, do they even really like me, or do I just sit next to them in class and they like want to talk and so I'm there. But it's like with you, like I genuinely feel like I'm like, okay, like we had this super fun time in our photography class, but then it's like you've also been like, hey, let's go to the hut and
Mhm.
we've managed to like kind of get this group of people all from that class to like be this community of like,
Yeah.
I feel like we still
Random
like just
people from
people I would have never
ever.
like just walked past in the hallway or like
Yeah.
something and been like,
Mhm.
hey, want to go to the hut? But like I do think the small class sizes of Santa Clara give you the opportunity to get close with people in classes,
Mhm.
which has been huge because in a 300 person lecture hall, you're
Yeah.
not
Mhm.
getting that. So yeah, I thank you for being a great person and like putting yourself out there for me as kind of like, I don't want to say a resource, but like someone who, is more involved and you can kind of pull me in. And
I feel like such a big part of it is like ever since I like was thrown into the deep end, like I've lost all fear of like putting myself in like every other deep end in the world. So like
that's
whenever
awesome.
I'm in like a class environment and I can like just like feel people's like
Yeah.
energy, like I'm so excited to make new friends, like
Yeah.
always, like no matter where they are from, because like I don't know, maybe it sounds horrible and insecure, but like I just like I feel like when someone like actually sees me and like likes me as a person, I'm like, that's enough. Like,
I love that, and I think that makes me reassured in the fact that not everyone is like, well, I have my friends, I'm good, no thanks. Like I can just talk to someone and you never know, and
Yeah.
it might turn into a friendship because
Mhm.
I think I've been so scared to even bother
Yeah.
in so many of my classes that then I maybe missed out on something that could have been like an actual friendship, or even if it didn't turn into a friendship and it was just a cool person to talk to in class, like I maybe missed out on that. And I think your warmth and your like openness made it easy for, and I mean, once I'm talking to someone, you can't get me to stop. Like, as you
We
probably
talked
tell.
about pickles for
But,
15 minutes
yeah,
the first
Yeah,
time we met.
we did. It's a true story. Yeah, I think people who make an inviting space can make all the difference for other people coming into that space to feel welcome. And I mean, that's coming from someone who, like, I'm pretty social. Like, I have a pretty easy time making friends when I, want to and like put myself out there. But, I mean, I'm just imagining like the people who come in who are, transfer students and maybe commuters, but are from out of town or are way more introverted and won't seek out, resources and won't go up and talk to people. And it makes me nervous or like but sad for people who maybe like I definitely could have gotten more out of my experience if I had sought out different
I don't think that's
things.
totally your job though.
No, I mean, I think it's both. I think there could have
there is
been
both.
more
support
for
resources.
sure, but I also think I'm like, of anybody to be able to go reach out and like find that for myself. Like, I feel like I would be perfectly capable of doing that. But then I'm like, yeah, there are people who aren't so confident and aren't so, you know, chatty. And I'm like, they really need that push and that support system kind of almost coming to them in order to have any chance of, you know, the experience that, because they may not want that experience and they may be perfectly happy going to class and going back to their house and that's it. But I know there's probably people who are more introverted but wish they could still meet people, like-minded people who, you know, they could open up to. And it makes me sad that there's not more opportunities that are just out there that are like go in your face, that it's like, okay, all I have to do is show up.
Or like take one step.
Right. They don't,
I totally
don't think
agree.
the school makes it super obvious. I mean, it's hard to say because I'm also like, I don't know what more they could do because there are posters and flyers out. There are social media accounts that post about activities. You get emails from the school. So in a way, I'm like, okay, well, they are kind of doing a lot. But at the same time, I think there's this fear of, okay, yeah, I know all about this event. I could tell you, you know, what day it is, what time it is, where it is, you know, who's going to be speaking or what food's going to be there, whatever. But it's like, going into it just from, you know, having that email, I don't know what my experience is going to be when I show up there. And it's hard to know what you're gonna face until you're there. And I think getting there is the scariest part for a lot of people. So I think it's not only that, you know, the information's out there for events. I mean, I think maybe the transfer student organization, I don't even know what it's called, but could maybe send out some sorry if that's rude, but
that's so fair.
I think there could definitely maybe be a little more information put out by them for transfer specifically. I think there's a lot of school-wide events that are there, but I kind of like my perspective when I see those emails is, oh, I would go if I had people to go with. But I'm not going to show up and just assume I'll meet people there. So I think either if there was a place for where it was emphasized, hey, you know, newcomers, like everyone, we're gonna like, you know, meet new people, or I don't know how they would
marketing it a little bit more to like people who like may not have another person to go with. Somehow
because I don't want to go alone and
accessible,
then there will be other people there, but then I know once I'm there I'm gonna walk around kind of maybe make some awkward eye contact with people and be like, nobody's coming nobody's coming up to me, I'm gonna go. But it's like if there was a emphasis on some aspect of like meeting people versus just come hang out and do this thing. I think it would be more inviting for people who don't have, you know, a friend group.
And I feel like it's the intention too, because like especially like kind of going back a little bit what you said, like the being in class, like someone like turning and talking to you. Like I think even marketing for events, the amount of people who are like so involved in like Santa Clara culture and like are the like people behind those emails. Because it's one thing to see like a flyer around campus. You're like, okay, well, I see the organization that's putting it on, but like I don't know we don't know anyone who's in it. Versus if like that person's in your class and it's like, hey, I would love to see you there, but it's not just like that. Hey, I want to see you there, so my event gets attended.
Your number,
but like, hey,
it's
like if anyone's interested, talk to me after class, and then when that person's at that event, be like, oh my gosh, you came, you're from my blah 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 class.
Follow up and
so it makes like, oh my gosh, I don't just care about you as like a body in the room, but I care about you like as a person, like you're in my class, like and that's how like those connections like get started, because I think that's like the biggest thing.
Because I don't need to know that I'm, you know, showing up with someone. I need to know that there's going to be someone there for me to talk to once I'm there. Like, I mean, it would be nice to go, you know, with a whole group together, but even if it's just like, oh, I'm going to see these people that I know won't just ignore me.
Exactly.
I would be way more, you know,
inclined to go and like put yourself out there.
And that makes a lot of sense too, because it's like it's not like administration can really do that for someone, like
or a flyer or a QR code.
It has to really be someone
that like
personal. You see and like feel comfortable around and like
like
where they also see you and are like, I want you here.
And I think that sort of investment in relationships, like people who invest in you make you feel seen, make you feel wanted there versus just they're like you were saying, like they're trying to, you know, up their attendance and get people to show up so that their event looks cool. But like being like, hey, we've had great conversations in this class.
Yeah.
I'm having this thing with my club and I think it'd be super fun, if you were there and come see me, or like even if it was like I had to go up to them, but they made it known like that is welcome. I think sometimes it's just like show up. Okay, then what?
Like what happens
What do I
after
do?
that?
Like the community outreach type of people.
Yeah.
Or even if it's not someone I know personally, I mean, I don't know that I would see. Okay, so I was gonna say if someone, from one of those teams was out on campus, personally handing
Yeah.
out flyers versus
Yeah.
them pasted on
And
a
like
wall
talking to
and
people.
talking to you.
Yeah.
I think it
That
would
still
still
would be hard.
depend
Yeah.
if I would go or not, like depending on, I think it would still be better if I knew the person to some capacity.
Yeah.
But I think that would be definitely better.
At least
I mean,
face
then
to it.
also maybe, people who are more shy, that might be actually more enticing to them because they're like, okay, they made me feel like they want me there. They said this to my face.
Yeah.
We want you there. Even if they don't end up going and talking to them, like, it feels more personal. And maybe someone who, I don't know, I think it probably needs to be a combination of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that someone standing out handing out flyers is enough, but I think it could definitely be a step. But then I think a really important piece of it is what you were mentioning, whereas once you're there, you remember, hey, I talked to you. How are you doing? Like, how's the rest of your day been? So glad you could make it. Want to go grab a cookie?
Instead of just like incentivizing. I think like people forget how powerful like human connection is, and like just like bringing people. It's like bringing people together. It's not just like, oh, if you come to this event, we'll give you like this or whatever.
Right.
Like, it's like, no,
It's like I don't care about that. About the, like,
that's not gonna make me feel like
Yeah.
comfortable and like excited
Right.
to like make a new friendship or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's even like more so important of the things like you do like outside of like the classroom or school realm. Like, like having events put on by clubs are like great, but I think even like the turning to you be like, hey, like me and my friends like are going to like X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to come?
Yeah.
Like, because I feel like, it's cool in like a school setting and all that, but like even that stuff like after it's like, okay, it's not just for the club. It's not just like,
even if that takes it to the level of, okay, wait,
we're
they like
friends,
me,
like,
they
this
want to
is
be
something
friends
we're-
with me.
yeah. Exactly. It makes that
Yeah.
closeness. And like people then they just want to like feel appreciated. They want to
Mhm.
feel
I feel
like
like
they
it's
want to
not
belong.
that hard to like, I mean, I think I've met people who have different, perspectives on this, but I've always been a more the merrier kind of person.
Mhm.
Like,
Same.
if I meet someone and they're cool, I'm like, hey, come join these people that I already know. I'll introduce you to every single person individually. I want you here with us.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be like, no new friends. I've got my people. Like,
Yeah.
I've got my people. I love my people, but I'm always willing
Yeah.
to add to my
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Because like, why would you not? If you mesh with
exactly.
someone, there's no point in like making them feel isolated
Exactly.
or excluded just because you're like, we're at capacity or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, we have enough people in our group.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I think some people may disagree and like to keep their circles smaller, but I think that even if we're not going to be the best of friends for our whole lives, like it's just nice to have familiar faces and people to talk to, and especially like because like I was saying earlier, I have friends, in the area. But like when I come to school, this is a community in itself. Even though I have friends in the community of San Jose and Santa Clara as a city, like I don't necessarily have a community within the Santa Clara University kind of area. And I think that it would be nice to, even if I still have those friends that I fall back on, to not come to school and be like, I really just don't belong here. Like, I don't need, like, I'm not relying on Santa Clara for my, lifelong friendships. If I meet someone that I become a lifelong friend with, awesome. But like, it would just be nice to like, anywhere you go, anything that you're a part of, it's nice to feel like you have a sense of belonging. Like, so even if I'm here for, on like, certain days I have one class a day, but like, I would stick around if someone was like, hey, we're doing this, or let's even just go, grab lunch or chat or study together or something. Like I would stick around for that, but I just think if I don't have that opportunity, like I'm gonna go home. Like
Yeah,
there's no
exactly.
reason for me to be here if I'm not doing something, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know.
I
But-
think that like kind of honestly leads us a little perfectly into our next few episodes, because as you were talking, I started to, think like, okay, it feels like this is not like this is something that hasn't existed forever. It feels like there are like reasons like within like recent years that like this difficulty of like being able to go up to people and invite them to things, or just like having like a long in-depth conversation just on the sidewalk like about what you've done with your day, like that's so rare to come upon. Like that wasn't always, like, at least in my mind, I like can't accept the fact that like that it's always been like that, because I don't think that's the case. I
COVID
think
did not help.
COVID,
Yeah.
I think social media
There's
especially
so much
like
pressure.
has made people not only feel less inclined to like have more people like within their groups, but like also just be more scared to like put themselves
So
out there,
there,
or even
yeah.
like go to like someone else's like group thing or event. Like it's people have become a lot less comfortable with like
Yeah.
themselves
Right.
and who they are, and then like also with other people, because we just I don't know. I think what we're gonna learn hopefully over the next few weeks is more from like an actual like studies perspective as
Yeah.
well. Like what are the like psychological like
Right.
changes
It's
that
not
these things
just, I
have
mean,
made?
being a transfer student and not living near campus
Definitely plays a
like,
part.
makes a
A
big
large
difference,
part.
but like I'm sure there are people who've been here for 4 years
Mhm.
and have lived on campus every single year and
Yeah.
still struggle with this.
Exactly.
And maybe the only
exactly.
people they know are their roommates, or
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
like, like I think even living here doesn't necessarily guarantee,
Mhm.
that sense of belonging.
Yeah. Period.
That was a
Honestly, that was
Yeah, that was
great.
really
Nice job. Thank you guys for listening.
Yes.
We will see you next week. We actually are next week. We have a sociologist who, her name's Kim Lear. She basically, for the past 20 years, she has studied two groups of students. One of them she started in like the 19 something, and she studied them for 10 years and how like their college experience affected them like 8 years after. And then her second group she started in 2020 when the pandemic hit. And she's now been talking to these students for 4 years, checking up on them twice a year,
Wow.
doing studies like on like how their college experience has impacted them, and also does a lot of work on social media as well. So that's going to be really interesting and exciting. But thank you, Elena, for coming. That was amazing.
You were so like amazing. So that's
Yeah.
our first guest. Like
Yeah,
this year,
best
very
first
inspiring.
guest ever. I literally,
Yeah.
like, I think it was like the second day I met you. I was like, "You're coming on our podcast."
Yeah.
I didn't hear you about it yet, but I know. That was great. I'm really glad you guys are doing this, because I think it's gonna give voices to a lot of people who, want, that sense of
story,
belonging, and then
yeah.
also resources, when you interview people who
Mhm.
who study this for a living,
Mhm.
maybe, people won't feel like, oh, it's all my fault.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
really great that you guys are doing this.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy we're doing
Yeah.
it. So. All right.
Cool.
Perfect.
Peace and love.
Bye, y'all.
Okay. Do I click? I just click
Yeah,
stop
stop
recording.
and end.
Stop recording.